of information and provide feedback to BM Ross, council, staff relating to the Town of Petrolia pedestrian connectivity study currently underway. At this time, I'd like to introduce council. To my far right or your left, we have Councillor Such. We have our CAO treasurer, Mr. Rick Charlebois. And I'll just go to the far end to your right. We have Mr. Don Welton, and we have Councillor Joel Field. And I'll ask Mandy if she'll introduce the staff present, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we do have 5 of us in attendance this evening. We have our Director of Marketing, Arts and Communication, Ms. Liver Ellsworth. We have our Director of Operations, Mr. Mike Thompson, our Director of Facilities and Community Services, Mr. Dave Menzies. We have both our planners. Sorry, I stand corrected. I only saw one. We have our Senior Planner, Rob Nesbitt, and we have our Planner, Phil Ruff. And with us from BM Ross is a member of our team for this project, Mr. Jordan Falkins, and I am Mandy Pearson, your Clerk Operations Clerk for the municipality.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. At this time, I would like to introduce Mr. Jordan Falkins from the BM Ross and turn the meeting over to him. I'm going to ask council to sit down and we'll watch the presentation, please. Floor is yours.
Is it working now? Thank you. Okay, this is Vanilla.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Your Worship, council, staff, and members of the public here. It's good to have you out. This is an open house or a public information session for the pedestrian connectivity study. So we're starting a new project, or the town is. They've passed some policies. So there's been a community wellbeing master plan, I'm sure a lot of you are aware of, and that really, from my understanding, kind of kickstarted this talk about sidewalks. We need some sidewalks, we need to improve the policies, and we need to put some in. Growing from that was the official plan amendment. So you have your higher policies. This is how we get an active, healthy community. And then the official plan, Mr. Nesbitt here assisted with that as well, implemented those policies to require sidewalks and new development to improve sidewalk connections. And that's really where we're brought to us today. This is the pedestrian connectivity study, which will be more detailed. I'll get into that in a little bit more, but what we do is we look at where the sidewalks are, we looked at the official plan policies where they should be, and we compare them. But there's a lot of areas of town that require sidewalks. Sidewalk connections need to be wider in certain cases. Sometimes the condition is not great. So there's all these different considerations, and that's why we have this meeting here with all of you today, is how do we prioritize all of those? Now moving into the study, we're right now in, I believe, phase 4 of this study. So we had our kickoff meeting late last year where BM Ross met with town staff, and we discussed what the study should have, what should be the process, what does community consultation. After that, we had our surveying crew with the GPS unit actually walk up and down all the sidewalks in town. They pinpointed exactly where they are, how wide they are. They noted any cracks or deficiencies, and then we used all of that data to create maps in the GIS system. So we mapped all these out, and now we're showing it to you guys. If you're out in the open house, there's some maps and everything. We want you guys to look at those. we have some questions. If you can fill it out, that'd be great too. We also have some other contact information we'll get to, but we really want to hear what you guys think, because there's a lot of different improvements that are required, and we really want your help to see what you value more. Do you want sidewalks by your schools? Do you want wider sidewalks, let's say along Petrolia Line in some cases? So it's really prioritizing all those sort of improvements. Like I said, I'm going to walk through each one of these maps. We start with the existing network. We go into the official plan policies that are required, then we compare them. And those maps are out for you all to see, and there's questions. So that's what we looked at, where they are, where they should be, what's most important. And that's for location, width, as well as hazards. What type of hazards maybe prevent you from walking? I want to know that. And what sort of deficiencies would you like? Now, there's a couple other plan documents. I touched on the community well-being master plan. They have a section there. It's called enhanced streetscapes. Consideration will be given to that as well as the parks and recreation master plan, which again touches on sidewalks and trails for a little bit. That also needs to be considered in those master plans. So to start off, this is the existing sidewalk network in Petrolia. It's kind of hard to see on the screen, so if you walk through the maps, you can see it a little bit clearer. But what this showing is, it's based off the roads. It's showing roads that have no sidewalks at all, roads that have one sidewalk, I believe are shown as yellow, and roads with sidewalks on both sides are shown as green. Maybe I'll just touch on this quickly. Petrolia, like you know, if you're downtown, there's sidewalks all over the place. Very, very walkable. You get into some of the subdivisions, like a lot of municipalities in Ontario in the 80s or 90s. So the newer subdivisions that are now required to have those sidewalks, they're next areas that are part of this is bridging that gap. Once the sidewalks, you have to go in over. So this is showing the official plan policies that require sidewalks on both sides of the Petrolia Line on Discovery, as they are there too, as well as sidewalks on one side of all residential areas. And this is showing a complete network. We'll have all these elements. And then this map will compare the first two maps. So you have your existing network, you have what's being required now by the official plan. And how do you get there? So as you see, there's yellow, orange, and red. A big part of that yellow shouldn't be there. It's on the Petrolia Line. I know past first going east there are sidewalks, and ignore that for a second. But all the orange would require one sidewalk. The yellow has one sidewalk, but will require two. And the red currently has no sidewalks. And you're getting out to the new development, McDonald's, but maybe there's a possibility for a trail connection to the north. Now, similar to that, so we talked about location. We also want to talk about width. Right now, this map shows sidewalks that are less than 1.5 meters. 1.5 meters is the new accessibility standard for those that don't know. So any new sidewalk that goes in needs to be 1.5 meters by the policies. And it shows areas that are at least 1.8 meters. So along the major arterial roads, the requirement is 1.8 meters, and that's why we separated it today. So, like I said, this is the official plan. This will get you your complete network for width, just based off the existing. You can see there are some undersized sidewalks. Right here, there's undersized. Everything will be 1.5 or 1.8. When comparing it, the red and the yellow or the orange needs to be improved. Again, which ones are more important to all of you? And if I get your comments here or at an open house, there's lots of material for you guys to write on. Let us know what you think. And finally, we talked about sidewalk condition. We walked every sidewalk and we picked up on areas that could be hazardous for walking. So we looked at clearance. So I have this issue probably more than most. But if I'm walking down the sidewalk, sometimes the street breaks right? So it's identifying those areas. It's called clearance, and it's a requirement, I believe, of the act as well. We looked at areas that were cracking. Sometimes they're worse than others. Another deficiency we noted was grinding. So when the sidewalk looks all weathered and really just old, it's sometimes difficult to walk on. Lifting as well. Sometimes when you come by trees that have large systems, right next to the sidewalk. And finally, obstruction, similar to the tree issue, this is bushes maybe or something that actually goes out into the sidewalk. And the sidewalk. So considering all of that, we ran some analysis and we identified areas that had a great condition sidewalk, no deficiencies whatsoever. And we identified areas that may need to be improved. They had a poor condition. And again, sorry, it's hard to see the colors on the screen, but the maps are right there for you to see. And finally, what I talked about, there's a couple other policy documents that we need to give consideration to. So we are talking about location, width, condition, but there's other policy documents like the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And it's talking about having a nice looped sidewalk system. It's connecting your green space, your open space, places of interest. So consideration will be given to this document when we prepare our final study. And we want to know what you think as well. Do you agree with these types of connections or are they? And finally, sorry, we have the community well-being master plan as well. A very small part of the document talked about enhanced streetscapes. Very similar to what I talked about before. It's improving walkability in these areas, key areas, or the hubs where we really. So finally, this map is out there. There's plenty of markers out here. This is just the study area of Petrolia. I kind of want to know your if you have any sort of idea that's not on the materials out there. I want you to pick up a marker, draw where you want a sidewalk, draw where you want one replaced, and just put some random notes on all of these plans for sure. We're going to gather all of these materials. It's going to form a very critical component of our final study. So the draft study, if we go back to the timeline, we're proposing that have that later this year. So right now is open house number 1. We want to hear what you think. We want to hear where you want sidewalks, like churches, schools, parks, whatever. Once we get to the second phase of this, we'll have a draft report that sends the council and staff for their review, and the public will have a chance to look at it as well. We'll have other poster boards that kind of show the key areas that we want changed, and maybe some more detailed plans of how the sidewalks, costs, information on grants and whatnot. But we'll have a second open house to see what you think, and we'll do this again. You can share thoughts. We'll have an actual plan together, and you guys can comment on that. We'll have another one of these meetings at that time. So with all that said, I believe if I skip ahead, we're just to the last slide. Like I said, display boards, please go wild. There's markers, there's stickers. Have some fun with it. And it's very important. We'll take these posters back to our office and then we'll summarize everything and what we thought. There'll also be a survey, I believe, on the town's website. I think survey must be using. So if you go online, there'll be 8 to 10 questions on there. Again, please fill it out and that'll form part of our correspondence as well. And I don't know if I have any business cards with me, but feel free to email, call me. Written comments are great as well. If you want to email me a message, they'll all form part of all this record and we'll consider this thing. So with that, thank you. I'm not sure, Your Worship, how you want to handle this.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Tom to come back.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of stayed.
Thank you, Mr. Falcons, for that. We'll just go through a little bit of a format, then I'll open it up for questions. Again, I want to welcome everyone here if you didn't hear me before. What I'd like to do at this time is ask the clerk, do we have any written submissions? Come forward regarding study.
Yeah, we've received nothing, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, I'd like to open it up to the public, first of all. Is there any questions that you would like to ask the planner at this time from BM Ross? And again, there will be time after this to go next door to view all of the charts as Mr. Falcon stated. So is there any questions at this time? And I know it's probably early. Staff, do you have any questions at all? Council, does council have any questions that you'd like to ask at this time? No? Oh, yes, sure. Come on forward. Just state your name and address, please.
Karen App, 4046 Englehart Drive in Petrolia. I noticed when doing the maps, they didn't even put the Fairbank Memorial Park on there. And there is a pathway that goes from Englehart Drive through to connect to the extension on Joe Street just before you go to the treatment plant. The pathway is very, very scantily, has more dirt than it has gravel. Supposedly extra was put on, but that did not happen, or if it did, it disappeared. And I don't see any, that even proposed for our area. And if you're going to do this, when do you plan to start implementing these sidewalks?
I think there's a whole process where the planner stated it, after he gets the information, he's going to bring it back with a report for council, and it will be a public meeting to review that as well. But I'd like to recommend that you maybe meet with Mr. Falcons right after this, show him exactly on the map where that is,
I have.
if that's okay. Okay, thank you. Yes, come on forward, please. Please state your name and address.
Donna Claremont, and I live on North Street. Apologize for how I'm dressed, but I'm just about to go play on your beautiful pickleball courts. So, so we are walkers. I walk with my friends probably anywhere from 3 to 7 days a week. My Fitbit says I average about 13 kilometers. So we are walkers in your township, in your town. The problem, one of the main problems I see every morning, I go out walking from North Street to Derby Street, and I am forced to walk on the highway. I cut through the Shell parking lot, but then on that short strip from Petrolia Line to Derby, there is no sidewalk there, and I have to walk on the highway. So I think that part is essential. I'm not sure why they didn't do that when they put in the McDonald's, but that is really dangerous for anybody walking there. The other part I see, and I noticed that wasn't on the plans at all, to look at putting a sidewalk there. And I know sidewalks are very expensive. So, I mean, even if, I think before you even look at widening them and putting in new ones, or widening or changing the sidewalks, it would be good to look at what's missing right now, because I think myself that that's kind of a safety issue there. And we also walk down by, I think it's First Avenue, we do a loop around Tile Yard. And Tile Yard is dangerous as well. There's a lot of vehicles that speed through there. And I don't know if there's any plans to put a sidewalk there. Doesn't even necessarily have to be a sidewalk, you know, a paved shoulder, something on the side where we can walk. And then we go up to that bridge. And I know obviously you can't extend that bridge for the cost, but even like a little railing where we could walk up on the bridge away from the cars, like there's that little abutment that's about maybe a foot off the ground. We can fit through there. I know it wouldn't be accessible, but even if there was, you know, some kind of safety railing there, and then all the rest of the way on Tile Yard, and all on First Avenue too, you get part of the sidewalk, and then you get to that new part of the subdivision. I can't remember the name of the golf course road where you go in there, but then the sidewalk just stops. So and that's a fairly busy area too. I'm not worried so much about walking in some of the cul-de-sacs and some of the other roads that aren't busy, even from the highway down Derby. You know, that's not bad because you don't have a lot of traffic and you're able to walk on the side. But definitely on Tile Yard and from North Street to Derby. It's
Okay.
dangerous.
I think just before you go, I think we did look at doing something with the sidewalk along what you call Tile Yard Road. I think the concern was because you have to go to a certain specification, so it has to be wide enough for a proper sidewalk. And there were complications with the bridge. I know that, but we had to maybe look at something to go on the other side, so it was very expensive. But again, I would suggest please meet with the planner, And show them where Derby is and out by McDonald's and just show him where that is. And he can make note of that.
Did you ever look at like a separate pedestrian bridge as opposed to the main bridge on Tile Yard? Like something smaller down the hill that could be added in there?
You mean on the other side of the bridge, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, we,
not
I think we
necessarily
looked at
attached
putting
to the
something
bridge.
along that side, but it was very expensive to have a pedestrian walkway in there.
Like a
um,
separate bridge, a separate.
Yeah, it was a separate platform to walk along.
Yeah,
And I don't know all the details. Maybe Mr. Thompson would have more details, but I do know they improved the lighting and they did some other things, but there was a concern with the road and how it falls off. There's not a lot of room to put a sidewalk in, but we can look at that. And I think if you just let the planner know, show him exactly where it is, we can consider those things.
okay, thank you
Okay.
very much. Your worship
Thank you
and
for
council
coming to
staff.
address council. Yes, please come forward. State your name and address, please.
Name's Bill Lapp and I live at 446 Englehart. We're looking at a lot of things tonight that happened many, many years ago when there was no planning and no expectations. But society has changed and the needs of the community have changed. And right now we're behind the 8 ball because everything is now just dropping in on you. Okay. So it's not the fault of the council for not having provided. I think some councils in the past let some developers off the hook because it was considered policy, which should not have been done. So I live over in Englehart. We're in the southwest corner of town. There is no connection to anything. If you want to go anywhere, you have to walk on the street, whether you have a baby carriage, a dog, kids, and the speed limit is 50K. Somebody is going to get hurt or killed. It is ridiculous to have a speed limit like that in a residential area because the demographics of the town have changed to young. And there's no sidewalks. So there is an easement, and I talked to Mr. Thompson, the manager, about getting it kind of biffed up a couple of weeks ago. I don't know. I walked down there today. I didn't see too much evidence of anything being done, but he could have done something. That is a easement that would alleviate a lot of road walking to a secluded path almost up to Joe. There's enough material there because it's 8 and 10 feet wide in places that could be graded, elevated, and then paved and be a very complimentary walking path and access to Greenwood Park because there's no connection to Fairbank Park. I want everybody to know it does exist. I roll it every spring with my own tractor and roller. It's there, but it's not connected to anything. That part of town is not connected to anything. Okay, so I understand your problem of trying to connect everything up and trying to internet everything and iNet everything. And it's going to take a little bit of time. And I don't think anybody's telling you it's got to be done tomorrow. Over the long haul, it's going to be a lot of money. But for the taxes we're paying, thank you, Rick. We should get something for our buck. Okay,
No, that's great. And I know you and I have discussed some of this before.
yes.
And again, I'm going to ask you to meet with the planner, show him some of that as well. I think, yes, we are. The whole reason for this study is to try and get things caught up. And we do know that there's some dollars involved. As far as the taxes, it's the council that sets it, not the
I
treasurer.
know,
But,
I just had to have a little bit of humor there,
That's
okay?
okay.
So I understand studies are wonderful, but they're absolutely useless if you're not going to implement them. If you're going to shove them on the shelf and let them create dust, what are we doing here? There has to be a result from the action that you are trying to start and initiate. Okay?
Absolutely, and I agree with that. And I would hope that the council would take action. The whole idea is to deal with this and have something in front of us with some kind of manner how we can approach it properly and not just be, quote, helter-skelter.
Because it is up to council, because eventually they answer to us, the electorate, and administration answer to them. So they have to bear down, take the input, take the data, make a decision and implement it. Whether everybody's happy with it or not, that's another question. But at least something has to be done and initiated and completed with the game plan.
I certainly agree, and I think the whole idea is that's why we're at the stage we're at now. Mr. Charlebois, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Thanks very much for your ideas. I'm sure it'll end up in the study. Just for your information, we do have a long-term capital plan. So the plan is after this is put together, got all the public input, go to council. Council will make decisions, and then that'll get put into our long-term plan. And as you alluded to, there's always more demand than money, but we'll do our best to work with for council's leadership to make it fit as best it can.
Well, I learned a long time ago, talk's cheap. It takes money to buy whiskey.
That does.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for coming to address council. Is there anyone else wishing to address council? Please come forward and state your name and address, please.
Allison Mavis on 4th Street. I just wonder if we're, as town, going through the trouble of having this company go all over the place and map the sidewalks, if we can't map the streetlights at the same time. Like, why not kill two birds with one stone? Because, for example, even on my street, 4th Street, this section has streetlights and this section has streetlights, and in the middle, there's not. So I just wonder if we can't save money, have two things done at the same time, and map the streetlights, because with more sidewalks, we're probably going to want more streetlights, and you might as well include it all in at the same time.
It's a good point. And I'd like to mention, I think Mr. Clive Berry, the engineer at that time, he did produce a lighting survey for the town. He literally drove up and down every single street. I'm not sure if that's still around, but we can certainly look at that and consider that. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we can certainly look at that. Councillor Field.
Yeah, just through you, when Blue Water Power put our new lights in, I believe that was part of it. They did a complete study of all the lights, where they were and what they were. So. Mhm.
We can certainly consider that. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to, please come forward. State your name and address, please.
424 Victoria Line. I'd like to thank the council and the Works Commission for looking into this. It's been a problem for years, and I think through COVID, it's really come to light. Everybody had nothing to do but go walk. But the only thing I'd like to bring forward is I take my grandson to school, and when you're walking and you're looking at all these streets, look through a child's eyes. Think you're a child and you're going to school, because if we made our streets safer for sidewalks and everything for everybody to attend, whether it's a hospital or a senior's home or LCDS or any of these things, if we make these places safer, you don't need to drive people to these things. Like when we were kids, we walked to school, but we also had sidewalks then. And then eventually they tore them up and they disappeared. So as I said, just look through a child's eyes. If you're a 5 or 6 year old and you're walking to Queenie School up Garfield, and you know how fast people drive there, and there's no sidewalks out of that subdivision to get to the school. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you for coming to address council. Anyone else wishing to address council at this time? If not, then I just want to mention the public are invited after this formal presentation to join BM Ross in the lobby area next door to view the detailed boards that he basically put on the screen in relation to this project. And he is there to answer any questions that you may have. And definitely show him on the map exactly your concern so he can know exactly where you're talking about. Do you have anything you'd like to add or? Oh, okay. And I'll declare this meeting closed. Thank you for coming, everyone.